This is not a story. This is a warning. Across America, there are places where the nightmares never end, and the truth is buried with the dead. Tonight, we open another door. Welcome to the American Nightmare.
I ain't saying this to scare nobody, and I ain't saying it for sympathy. I'm saying it because some things don't stay buried just because time passes. Back when I was younger, everybody in this part of Kentucky knew the name Beauregard Sutton. Folks called him Beau, not to his face, mind you, just Beau. Tall man, wiry, always wore them overalls and that old bucket hat, pulled low like he didn't want the world looking back at him too hard. Beau ran the best shine the mountains ever gave up. They called it Beau's Bad Mountain Shine. Smooth as creek water, strong as sin. Didn't matter how low the fire was, that still of his ran clean. Too clean, if you ask me. Beau had a temper. Everybody knew that, too. You didn't steal from him. You didn't lie to him. And you sure as hell didn't bring the government up his mountain. I seen it once. Just once. A tax man came poking around where he didn't belong. Asked too many questions. Acted like the mountain owed him answers. Beau didn't raise his voice. Didn't threaten him. Just looked at him for a long time. Then he did something I still don't talk about easy. All I'll say is, that man went back down the mountain changed, and no taxman ever came back up after that. Not one. Not Beau's way. Not Beau's land. They said Beau died in a fire in '72, but fires don't always kill what they're meant to. Some men belong to the mountain, and sometimes the mountain lets them stay.
In eastern Kentucky, there are hollers where the mountains don't feel like land. They feel like ownership. In Harlan County, the ridges press close together, shutting out light and sound alike. Roads narrow until they forget where they were meant to go. And the longer you stay, the more you understand something the old folks never bothered explaining. The mountain doesn't belong to anyone. People belong to it. In the summer of 1979, 3 men climbed into one of those hollers, believing they were finally about to outrun their bad luck. They had tried moonshining before, tried hard, tried often. Every attempt ended the same way. Weak liquor, bad runs, no buyers, and just enough debt to make quitting impossible. They blamed their copper, their water, their yeast, the weather. They blamed everything except the truth. They weren't cut out for it. But desperation has a way of changing what a man believes he deserves. Their names were Jimmy, called Jim Bob since childhood. Cal McKinney, quiet and careful. And Hal, known as Huckle, because nothing ever seemed to weigh on him long enough to matter. They lived small lives in a place that remembered larger ones, and no name carried more weight in that part of Kentucky than Beauregard Sutton. Beau Sutton wasn't just a moonshiner. He was a warning told too late. Tall and wiry, always in overalls with a bucket hat pulled low, Bo ran shine so clean it embarrassed everyone else. His liquor burned smooth even when the fire was barely breathing. Old men said his still ran when it shouldn't, as if the mountain itself leaned in to help. But the shine wasn't why people lowered their voices when they said his name. Bo Sutton had rules. Everyone knew them. He hated thieves. There were stories of men who stole jars from his runs, men who were later found with broken hands, laid out near the creek like they'd been returned. Others were never found at all. Folks said Bo didn't kill quick when it came to thieves. He made examples. He hated liars just as much. One story told of a runner who shorted him on a deal, swearing the money was lost. Weeks later, the man turned up alive, but different. Wouldn't speak, wouldn't look anyone in the eye. Left the county soon after, walking like something inside him had been rearranged. And taxmen? Bo Sutton despised taxmen with a personal kind of devotion. In the late 60s, revenuers came sniffing around his holler. 2 trucks went in. 1 came out. The men inside never spoke about what happened, only that Bo Sutton didn't raise his voice once. After that, no one wore a badge anywhere near his land. No one ever testified. No one ever confessed. And no one ever doubted what would happen if you crossed him. In 1972, Bo Sutton's cabin burned to the ground. The fire was ruled accidental. Bo Sutton's body was never recovered. Only his bucket hat was found, sitting in the ashes, untouched by flame, untouched by heat, untouched by explanation. 7 years passed. 7 years was long enough for fear to soften into story. By 1979, Bo Sutton wasn't a threat anymore. He was history, a legend, something to talk about when the jars ran low and the night ran long. That was how Jim Bob, Cal, and Huckle chose to see him. They parked their truck where the road gave up and walked the rest of the way in, climbing toward the remains of Bo Sutton's land. The woods grew thicker the higher they went. The air cooled unnaturally, even for summer. What remained of the cabin sat exactly where the story said it would. A collapsed chimney, charred earth, nothing reclaimed, nothing rebuilt. The place felt unfinished. Behind the cabin, deeper into the timber than anyone had business building, they found the still. Old copper, scarred, carefully patched. It didn't look abandoned. It looked resting, as if it had been left alone, not left behind. Jim Bob wiped dirt from a metal plate bolted to the side. The words were burned deep into the copper. No thieving, no lying, no taxmen. Huckle laughed, sharp and dismissive. "He's dead," he said. No one corrected him. They came back the next day with tools, then MASH. then confidence they hadn't earned. They worked for weeks, hauled supplies, replaced lines, fixed seams that should have failed. The still accepted every repair without resistance. Pipes fit where they shouldn't have, seals held where rot should have won. It was as if the machine remembered how to be whole. No animals came near the clearing. The woods stayed quiet in a way that felt intentional. When the night came to run the still, the sky was dark and starless. They kept the fire low, respectful, more out of habit than belief. The copper warmed. Then the still began to pulse, slow, steady, like something breathing. When the first jar filled, Cal tasted it and froze. This is it, he said. That was enough. They drank, they laughed, they drank more. Years of failure dissolved into the dirt at their feet. This wasn't just better than anything they'd made. This was better than anything they'd ever tasted. They talked about money, about buyers, about running it every night. They drank until the woods softened at the edges, until the cold didn't matter, until the pulsing felt comforting, until the mountain listened in silence. Somewhere between the third jar and the fourth, the drip slowed, then stopped. None of them noticed right away, and deep beneath the trees of Harlan County, something that had never forgotten remembered exactly what was owed. For a little while, it felt like they had finally won. The shine running from Bo Sutton's still was everything Jim Bob, Cal McKinney, and Huckle had chased for years. It came out clean and strong, smooth enough to make them forget every failed run that had come before it. This wasn't luck. This felt like proof. They celebrated like men who had never known success and didn't know how to hold it carefully. They drank too fast and too deep. They laughed louder than the woods seemed to appreciate. Shine spilled onto the dirt, soaking into the ground without a second thought. The rules burned into the copper, sat ignored in the darkness, no more meaningful than an old story told too many times. The still pulsed beside them, steady and patient. At the height of it, Jim Bob lifted his jar, face flushed and smiling in a way it hadn't in years. "Best damn shine I ever had." Huckle swayed slightly, grinning back at him. "Ain't nothing ever gonna touch this." That was the last moment the night belonged to them. Cal McKinney drifted away from the firelight without saying a word. His jar was already open, already half gone. He stepped into the trees with the loose confidence of a man who believed nothing bad could happen on a night like this. A short distance from the clearing, Cal stopped near a thick oak. He set his mason jar down at the base of the tree, careless but deliberate, and turned to take a leak. That was when the woods changed. Not with sound, with silence. The insects stopped. The hollow seemed to draw inward, the air turning heavier, colder. Cal straightened slowly, an uneasy feeling crawling up his spine before his mind could name it. He looked around, eyes moving through the darkness between the trunks. The firelight behind him barely reached this far. Nothing. For a moment he felt foolish. Huckle liked to mess with people, especially when liquor was involved. Cal shook his head slightly, annoyed with himself for letting old stories creep in. Then he glanced down. The jar was gone. Cal's breath caught. His eyes swept the ground, then lifted. The mason jar now sat several feet away, upright on a flat rock, not spilled, not tipped. Carefully placed, as if whoever moved it had taken the time to do it right. Cal froze. His gaze followed the jar upward. A figure stood behind it, half lost in shadow. Tall, wiry, overalls hanging loose on a narrow frame. A bucket hat pulled low, hiding the face completely. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, didn't rush him. Cal took a step back. The figure picked up the jar. Then it closed the distance. The mason jar smashed into the side of Cal's head. Glass shattered on impact, shine exploding outward as Cal staggered and collapsed into the dirt, pain flashing white behind his eyes. He screamed. A raw, panicked sound tore out of him, echoing through the hollow. Before he could pull in another breath, hands seized his collar, strong, unyielding. Cal was dragged backward across the ground, boots scraping through dirt and leaves as he clawed at the earth. The scream broke into desperate gasps, then faded, then stopped. The woods swallowed him. Back in the clearing, the laughter died instantly as Cal's scream cut through the night. Jim Bob froze, jar lowering slowly from his mouth. Huckle snapped toward the tree line, the grin gone from his face. "Cal?" No answer came back, only silence. Then movement. The trees at the edge of the clearing parted, and a tall figure stepped forward into the edge of the firelight. Overalls, bucket hat, long arms hanging loose at its sides. One hand glistened dark and wet. The figure stopped and stood there, breathing slow and steady, as if it had all the time in the world. Jim Bob and Huckle stared, hearts pounding, minds scrambling for explanations they couldn't hold on to. Because the man standing at the tree line looked exactly like the stories said he would. And whether it was Bo Sutton himself, or something the mountain had shaped to wear his memory, the night had already decided how much was owed. For a long moment, no one moved. Jim Bob and Huckle stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, staring at the figure that had stepped from the tree line. Firelight crawled across its overalls, but never quite reached its face. The bucket hat cut the head into shadow, turning the man beneath it into a shape more than a person. The still pulsed softly behind them. The figure breathed slow and steady. Huckle was the first to break. After soiling himself while standing, he stumbled backward, boots scraping dirt, panic rising fast now that the night had finally caught up with him. His mouth opened, searching for words that wouldn't come. "This ain't," he started, then stopped, as if the rest of the sentence knew better than to exist. He lost his balance and fell. Before he could gather himself to stand and run, something heavy caught him from behind and drove him face first into the dirt. He screamed once, high and broken, and tried to crawl away, fingers digging uselessly into the soil. The figure knelt. No hesitation, no anger, no rush. A mason jar came down hard against the back of Huckle's head. Glass shattered. Then another mason jar. Then a closed fist. Huckle's screams were cut off mid-breath from the lethal blows being dealt. Huckle twitched once, then went still. The figure remained crouched over him for a moment, head tilted slightly, listening, not to Huckle, but to the woods, as if making sure nothing else was going to interrupt. Then it stood. Jim Bob had already backed away toward the still, breath coming fast now, his hands shaking as they closed around a length of pipe left from their repairs. Whatever pride he'd been wearing earlier was gone, replaced by the stubbornness that had kept him alive this long. He swung first. The pipe cracked against the figure's shoulder. The impact would have dropped any normal man. The figure barely shifted. Jim Bob swung again, and again. One blow glanced off the chest. Another struck the side of the head, knocking the bucket hat askew for just a second, long enough for Jim Bob to see something pale and wrong beneath it. That was when the figure grabbed him. The strength was shocking. Jim Bob fought hard. He landed punches, elbowed ribs, drove his shoulder into the figure's chest and forced it back a step. For a moment, just one, he almost believed he could get away. Then the figure hit him. A single, precise blow. Jim Bob went down hard, the world flashing white as his head struck the ground. He tried to push himself up, but a hand closed around his throat and lifted him with ease. His feet kicked uselessly above the dirt. The figure held him there, face inches from shadow, breathing slow and steady, as if studying him. Then it reached down and picked up a mason jar from beside the still. The same shine. The one Jim Bob had been so proud of. The jar was jammed against his mouth, forcing it to open. Jim Bob shook his head weakly, hands clawing at the arm holding him aloft. The figure didn't react. It simply tipped the jar. Shine poured in. Jim Bob gagged, choked, convulsed. Liquid spilled down his chin, soaked into his shirt. His body thrashed as the burn hit his lungs and stomach all at once. Steam rose faintly from his mouth. The figure did not stop. When the jar was empty, it released him. Jim Bob collapsed beside the still, coughing once, then not at all. The figure stood over him, breathing unchanged. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the still's pulsing slowed and stopped. This style killing was a trademark of Beauregard Sutton. He would drown thieves in Bo's Bad Mountain Shine, the same exact way Jim Bob was that night. The figure turned away from the bodies and walked back toward the trees. The bucket hat slipped back into place as if guided by habit. By the time it reached the tree line, the firelight no longer touched it. The woods closed. By morning, there was nothing left in the clearing but the burned-out fire, 3 broken mason jars, and a faint smell of copper and sweet alcohol lingering in the air. The still was gone. No drag marks, no footprints, no sign it had ever been there at all. People would talk, of course. They'd say the 3 men vanished. They'd say revenuers came through. They'd say it was bad liquor, bad luck, bad choices. And a few old folks in Harlan County would shake their heads and say nothing, because they already knew. You don't steal from the mountain. You don't take what isn't yours. And you don't break Bo Sutton's rules, because when you break Bo's rules, you pay. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you enjoyed our story, please be kind enough to hit the like button and subscribe for more nightmares based on truth. Be sure to join us again next week as our scenery shifts from the Appalachian hollers of Kentucky to Cleveland, Ohio, where a couple, down on their luck, moves into a housing project and gets more than they bargained for. Only on American Nightmare.